Hello friends, today let us learn about scientific methods of research. Now in this presentation we will be understanding how the scientific method of research works, but before we go to that we need to know something about inductive method and deductive method. Now if you look at inductive method, is a method where the conclusion is generalized from multiple facts. So we actually are in search of multiple facts, we combine those facts and then we actually come to a point where we generalize our result. All the universal laws that we see around us are established from these particular cases which are combined together. Their pattern has been followed for some time and accordingly we reach to a conclusion, that is we accordingly establish some theory. It starts with an observation, and when we have several observations on the same agenda, then we understand that there is a pattern on that. When we look into the pattern, this pattern helps us to develop a tentative hypothesis, and this hypothesis, once tested and found to be true, takes us to a theory. This is the process in which the inductive method of research works. I have an example of inductive method. For Sunday last, we started for university and reached in 45 minutes. We took lunch in Dreams, this is the name of a restaurant, and it was served in 10 minutes. Thus, every day I shall start for the university in 55 minutes prior to my class so that I can take lunch in Dreams and go to the class. So this is one day I had observed, but you see that was a Sunday. Sunday traffic is generally light. So this is not a good enough example based on which we can set up a theory. But if we repeat this several days, then we will find that the time that I take to reach to the university from my home, and in between I take lunch in Dreams as well. So this single observation cannot take us to a theory, but observations measured simultaneously or consecutively one after another on the same object will help me to develop a pattern, and from this pattern I can develop a hypothesis and then put the hypothesis to test and then lead to theory. So this is the entire process of an inductive method. Another example of inductive method is, my uncle was a chain smoker. He never developed cough or cold. Neither he had any symptom of cancer. He died due to road accident. The smokers may not die due to cancer but may die due to road accident. So this is when you take decision or reach to a conclusion based on watching only one observation. But this will not be so when you consider several observations in order to understand the pattern. Now, when you want to understand the pattern, one observation is not good enough. You have to take into care several number of observations. So that is how the inductive method works. Now let us go to the deductive method. In this method, we proceed from general to a particular case. Here conclusions are drawn from a particular case on the basis of what has happened in a general situation. Here the reasoning works from more general to more specific cases. Now in these are the cases where we actually move in the opposite direction. First we have a theory. From the theory we draw a hypothesis. Based on the hypothesis, actually we collect some observations and we actually check whether the hypothesis is correct or not, and then this takes us to a confirmation. So it is a reverse. Generally this is the way in which we study, that whenever we study we don't develop a theory, right? We actually have a theory and then we understand that if this theory is in working condition, then this would happen to us or this is happen to an individual. That is, from a particular theory in several steps we move to reach a confirmation. So this is the process called as the deductive method. Let us take an example of deductive method. Every day I start for the university 1 hour before the start of my class. So that is the theory that has already been established after so many days of travel. Every day it takes 50 plus minus 5 minutes to reach the university. Today I started for the university 1 hour before my class, so I shall reach the university just before my class. So this is what actually happens when we have experience about data, when we have already observed, understood the pattern and developed a theory. Then we come down from the theory to explain a particular case, that this is the theory, this is what has been happening over the years or over the number of days. So today this will not be an exception. So this today also this is going to happen. So this way we actually the deductive method works. Scientific research is a collaboration of both inductive and deductive method. However, there is more application of inductive method in scientific research. That means when we do scientific research, we start with experimentation and then we, in due course of time, we reach to the theory. But it is not that inductive method is the only way of scientific research. In certain cases, the deductive method has to play a significant role. However, this may not always be correct and justified to base our generalization based on single cases. So based on single cases, we should not go for generalization. If we go by the definition of scientific research, you will find that the scientific method consists of systematic observation, classification, and interpretation of data. The main difference between our day-to-day generalization and conclusions usually recognized as scientific method lies in the degree of formality and rigorousness, verifiability, and general validity of the latter. So these are the ways in which we differ. The scientific method of research differs from the way that we generalize things at the end of our day-to-day life. The day-to-day life also we generalize many things, but when we go to the scientific method of research from single observations, then few more observations, and then a few more observations, we understand the trend pattern, and then we develop hypotheses from where we reach to a conclusion. So this process is more rigorous in scientific research than what we do in our everyday life. Karl Pearson, the famous statistician, has provided different conditions under which the scientific research actually survives. The conditions or the features of scientific research, according to him, are a careful and accurate classification of facts and observation of their correlation and sequence. So how things happen one after another, what is the correlation and what is the sequence of the events that are happening to a particular case. The discovery of scientific laws by aid of creative imagination. So how the scientific laws are discovered given a creative imagination, that is self-criticism as the final touchstone of equal validity for all normally constituted minds. So whenever some theory is established, it is subject to self-criticism. The theories might change with time, and this is the basis of scientific research. Scientific research believes that no theory is absolutely true, and every theory can be put to challenge at due course of time. Now let us look at some of the characteristics of scientific research. Number one, fact shall be verifiable. So if you state a fact, it can be verified and some result can be reached from this particular. It shall be objective in nature. So this shall be objective. The result obtained shall be definite and clear. So the result is clearly explained and it should be definite. Generally, generality is an important feature of scientific research. That means we can generalize our the results obtained shall not be applicable to only one individual but to the entire cluster. That means it should be true to the entire group. It should be true to the entire group of people. It should be true to the entire group of cattle. It should be true to the entire group of plants. So these are actually some of the features of characteristics of scientific research, and most important, that is the generalization of the theories can be done. It shall discuss the system through which the scientific study can be carried out. So there should be a clear-cut methodology of how this experiment can be done or how this study can be performed in case of scientific research. So these are some of the characteristics of scientific research. Now, scientific methods, can these scientific methods be applied in business research? Some scientific research demands a time frame which may not be allowed in business decision making. Many research requires a particular time frame, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 months, maybe 7 or 8 months. a time frame is required, because you have to see how these things work out. For example, suppose you have developed a new fertilizer which actually promotes the growth of plants or actually increases the size of the fruit. So you started giving this fertilizer from the time you start sowing the seed of that particular plant. Plant in its own way grows up, and when the season comes, it bears the fruit. Now, at the end of this, when the fruit is ripe, when the fruit is matured, then you pluck it out, and then you can measure it with the performance of its fruits, or the weight and volume of the fruit that was born, that the plant used to give earlier and after the application of the fertilizer. So there comes a comparison, and once this is successfully compared, and we find that currently the size of the volume of the fruit has grown more, then we can conclude that yes, this is a fertilizer which actually helps in the growth of the plant, in terms of growth of the fruits, in terms of its volume and weight. Now, having said that, you are actually going towards establishing of a theory. Now, this entire process of research will say take a time frame. Now, in business research, many a times it so happens that we want some very quick decisions. Now, this type of decisions when we require, and in those cases, the scientific research may not be a very good method of performing business research. However, some scientific experiments are conducted in controlled environment. Now, these are not possible in many a type of business research. We cannot declare a controlled environment. We cannot, because these business research mostly are concerning human beings. And in human beings research, when research concerns human beings, there are a lot of ethics which you have to abide by in order to perform the research. So in such cases, we cannot implement scientific research where we require to control the environment or different factors in order to understand how a particular variable is influenced by another variable. So this controlling of environmental factors is restricted in business research. So it is sometimes difficult to employ scientific methods of research in the business research or in the practice of management. However, many decision areas such as those of labor productivity, material handling, product planning, and consumer behavior require complex and large data sets to be analyzed, which is definitely a part of scientific research. Thus, in such cases, scientific tools are used even for quick business decision making. That means you have a large data set. Based on this data set, or large or maybe small also, based on this data set, you are to take some business decisions. You are to understand the consumer behavior. You are to understand the trend and pattern of consumer pattern of sale and purchase of commodities in the market. Now, when you have this type of data and you need to analyze and reach to the results, you want to find out what the data is telling you. In such cases, we have to take the help of business decision making. In that case, we may take the help of scientific methods of research. Many business decision making requires replication of an actual situation virtually to enable decision making easier. This can be attained through simulation, which is a popular scientific tool. In simulation, actually, we virtually create a situation which might exist in reality. For example, I am going to open a store, but I don't understand the flow of customers to my store. Now, in order to get this flow of customers and to check out whether I can serve the customers when they actually come before me in real time, I can start a simulating exercise. In the simulating exercise, different customers will come to me with the different types of demands, and I may check out whether I can provide these different types of demand which I have promised to provide them, my customers, in a virtual world. If I can do it, and if I can feel that these things can be done and this service can be provided, then I can go on to face the real situation. Because many a times it so happens that real situation cannot be implemented directly, but you need to check up whether your system is ready to face a real situation. In such a case, we have to undergo or take the help of a scientific tool called a simulation, which will help to replicate an actual situation, generally with the help of some random numbers. So this process is very much applicable in business research too. So there are different scientific methods whose help is taken for solving different business related issues. So it is not that scientific methods cannot be applied in business research. Rather, in business research and in business decision making, lot of scientific methods are already applied. But in some cases, when you require a controlled environment, or when you require a huge time frame or a considerable time frame, business research may not be in keeping with such a requirement, and hence in some of the cases scientific research, though may seem to be appropriate, could not be applied because of this time constraint. The experimental method is seldom used in managerial analysis. A very important aspect of scientific research is experimental method. We experiment out things in the laboratory, or we experiment things through our observation, and from the experiments we generalize our results. This type of things which takes place in physical sciences could not be applied in business decision making. For example, there is a relationship between the sales revenue and the advertisement budget, but it is not easy to tell which is the actual cause and which is the effect, or both of them are interlinked to each other. So, for example, sales revenue advertising. My sales revenue goes high, then I earn more revenue. So next year I go for a huge advertisement, more advertisement, so that I can tell about my product to larger number of people, and accordingly my product is in demand. Now, if now once again more advertisement means more people coming to the store, or more people are in demand of that particular product. That means more sale is taken place. So advertisement is helping sale, and if you earn more revenue, then you can actually spare a part of the revenue for advertisement, more of the uh, amount in absolute terms, in terms of advertisement. So both may help each other. It is difficult to say which one is the cause, which is the effect in some cases, but it is also true that in some cases they might be interlinked. So cause and effect might be both ways. So this type of examples are there where we don't have much to experiment upon. Thus, the use of scientific tools in business research may not be direct in some cases, but in some cases it is directly used also. Let us go to the final words, like business research needs to be more objective to get the benefit of scientific research. Now look at what is your research question. Now in your business research, you will have a research question which you will be trying to answer through your research. In such cases, if you want to use scientific research, then your research question need to be very objective. We have two examples below, like how do customers feel about our brand? And another question, as per our customers, what are the top 3 qualities associated with our brand? Now, for a business researcher, the two questions may seem to be taking to your same conclusion. First one will take you how do customers feel about our brand. So customers will give different opinion. From there you can pick up the 3 opinions which are more frequently appearing. And the second one seems to be we can get the solution to the second one in the same way. But for a scientific research point of view, the second research question is more specific and it is more objective. So for scientific methods of research, it is easier to understand, or it is easier to answer an objective research question than a relatively less objective research question. So these are what we want to tell about scientific methods of research and its relation with business research. Thank you for such a patient hearing.